I am Sir Raven, your CEO of BLX, Kink Aware Sex Education. We are about education in a safe way when it comes to kink, and an even safer way when it comes to sex. 1, 2, 1, 2. So I want to tie this in with a story time. We were on a live a couple of weeks ago, and in the chat, it was a great conversation, by the way. Thank you. Our community that we're kind of cultivating, and the people that participate in our Instagram lives, it's really, really good. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the conversation, the discourse, the silliness, the suggestions, all of that. We were in a live a couple of weeks ago, and a question was asked, and I'm not sure, so forgive me, if it was, when you've made a mistake, what was it, and what did you learn from it? Or if you made a mistake, what was it and what did you learn from it? Something like this. I know it was about mistakes, so this video is going to be talking mistakes and me answering that question, because I have been thinking about it ever since. At the time, we were on with Liquid and Faye, and they answered the question. I chose not to answer the question. I declined, not because I didn't have examples. Lord knows I do, but I really wanted to give it some thought. It was a really good question. I didn't want it to be like a throwaway kind of a thing. I wanted to really dig deep into that kind of a thing, and that might have led to some other stuff. And anyway, so first of all, thank you for the question. And this is, I guess, like my answer. Yes, I have made mistakes. So I did not just wake up one day and knew how to do all the things. I started experimenting with kink and BDSM when I was a teenager. I'm not a teenager anymore. I'm a crone. Thank you. And proud of it. But at the time, there is no education. I could not find any kind of education. There wasn't a school for you to be a black person talking about certain things, or a person trying to figure out and go to school and be like, hey, my boyfriend likes when I spank them, or, can you teach me how? I think I'm doing it wrong. And I don't know why I'm talking with that voice, but anyway, I guess that's like a child's voice. So I didn't wake up knowing how to do a thing. I experimented, and blessed enough to have people that would allow me to do the things that I thought I wanted to do, and some of the things that they were into, and it was like, all right, let's try it, right? So I didn't know all of the things. I had to, no pun intended, hit and miss. I did know I'd like to do a certain thing to people. For instance, if you ask anybody who knows me, what is Sir Raven really good at demoing or teaching, whatever, the first thing they're going to say is canes. And that is very true. I really get off on canes and that whole corporal punishment kind of a thing. I love it. But I do other things. I do needles, I do cutting, I do spitting, punching. I like a lot of things, right? But a person would say that. And because when I was learning, and the person, like I said, was willing to let me do these things to them, I was young and dumb, but I wasn't stupid. And that meant I knew, even at that age, not to hit a bone, not to hit an elbow with the cane, not to hit the knees, not to hit the back of the neck, not to hit the... I knew those things. Like, why would you do that? So I learned. I, hit or miss. It wasn't until much later, because our education was the back of the Village Voice, that was our school. We found out a lot of things at the back of the Village Voice, that I found community where I can learn how to do things a whole lot safer, and also have people that I can discuss wanting to do these things, or why I liked doing them, and these kinds of things happen. So I just wanted to say I didn't wake up like this, right? I had to learn. So I'm saying all of that to finally get to the point. The mistake that I made, I also like cutting, and I had learned how to do cutting with a scalpel, right? And was doing this scene with this person, and I was cutting on the top of their thigh. Right? And we're doing the thing. And I have my hand the way I'm supposed to. Scalpel, I learned, I had practiced and did a little bit of cutting on myself and these kinds of things. And so I was doing it. We're enjoying it. I was enjoying it. And my nose started to feel like tingly, like I was gonna sneeze. And so as I am moving the scalpel, I stopped. And I turned my head like I was gonna sneeze. And when I turned back around and looked down, there was like blood everywhere. And what I had realized is that even though I stopped, the scalpel is very sharp. It still went a little bit deeper. And I'm not saying it was blood like everywhere. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that I cut just a little bit too deep. Like I put pressure on it and it just went a little bit too deep. And so it was bleeding, and it was like a little bit of, it wasn't a cut to the white meat, but it was a cut. But I had all my stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, just tried to get the pants on. It was difficult with a darn hard dick, but we got it. I changed my clothes, I get dressed. We go downstairs to get a cab, and fun fact, at the time, cabs didn't stop for black people. So when I was raising my hand to get a cab, all the cabs were passing me by. And he moved me back, he raised his hand. Magically, the cab stopped. We get into the cab. I say a hospital, and he goes, no, we're not going there. And he says another hospital. And so we're in the cab, and if you're ever taught anything, at least the way I was taught, that when you make a mistake and you have to go to the hospital, go to the fucking hospital and get your story straight. And that's another discussion for another time, because people get treated differently in hospitals. We'll say that when it comes to medical professions. And so we go to this place, we pull up to the emergency room, walk into the room. I was like, what the fuck is this? But that's another story. And we go in, and he walks up to the desk, and the nurses ask him questions. And he says, and the nurse says, how did you sustain the wound or whatever? And he goes, well, I was, messing around, and I made a mistake and cut myself. And literally, she was like, okay. And she took the rest of the information, and then the doctor called. And as I'm going up to go with them, the nurse says, who is she? And he says, oh, that's my nurse or something. It's like my nurse, my house nurse or something. I don't know. It's a long time ago. And she was like, okay. And I went in the back, and the doctor's looking at it, and they're talking. And he goes, oh, it's not that bad. A couple of stitches. And the doctor is stitching them up, says they're going to dissolve, and la la la. We leave. And it was all good. We're standing outside, and I am nervous because I'm like, I made this mistake. I did this thing. I should have removed my hand, and if I was going to sneeze, then sneeze. If I wasn't going to sneeze, then I wasn't going to sneeze, and then go back to it. But instead, I left my hand there, and that's where all of this came from. And we got outside, and I'm apologizing, and it does something. Like, you make this mistake. It's like a mistake. It wasn't life or death, but it was still a mistake. And it was a mistake in the thing it is that we do, which I keep saying is not safe. We learn how to do it as safe as possible. I'm apologizing, and that and third, and he's like, it's not a problem, that was really good, I really appreciated you, those kinds of things. And he says, let me put you in a cab. And he puts me in the cab, and he closes the door, and he says, I'll see you next month. And I was like, really? Anyway, that's my story of how I made a mistake. For a time after that, my confidence wasn't all that great when it came around that activity. I did have people that I can talk to about it, and I did. And they said things like, we all make mistakes. At least that person was cool about it, and it wasn't like they were pressing charges, and they were all of these kinds of things. Anyway, there's a backstory to that. But it was still a mistake, and it was still something that made me really unsure about myself for a really long time. And fast forward, next month comes, and I get my phone call. Sorry, I get my beeper. Anyway, and we're setting up for another appointment, and I say to the person, well, I'm gonna have someone there with me, and because this person liked a certain thing, and even though it wasn't what he wanted, I explained, I'm just not available, I'm feeling well, but I want you to have the thing, and we worked it out. That's what negotiation is all about. And so that was that. So I'm saying all of that to say two things. One, yes, I've made mistakes, and that was a mistake that I made that really affected me. Impactful kind of a way, it really affected me. My confidence, it affected that. I haven't done a cutting in a very long time, and so there are skills that if you don't use it, you lose it. Right? It's not like riding a bike. There are certain things that you're like, I know how to do that, but something like a cutting I haven't done in so long, so I would practice again. I would go back to the drawing board and practice again, and these kinds of things. So there's that. Another thing is that we are learning in this little ramble conversation that I'm doing is that it's okay to be young, and it is okay not to know, but it's also imperative that you have enough sense to be safe and not to put yourself or someone else's body in danger of not being safe. So another thing that I learned is that when people allow me to do a thing to their body, they are trusting me with that. And that's a responsibility that is on me and me alone, right? Even though I was young with the caning, right? Like I said, I had some sense. I knew what not to do. So if you're out there and you're trying to learn and you want to do a thing and you think, oh, this is sexy, I want to do it, right? It was done in a book or it was in a movie. Shit that's in our head when it comes to the reality may not turn out as well. So I just want people to be safe. And BLX is about that kind of education of being kink aware, right? Teaching how to do a safe thing. Even teaching edgy things, like cutting is edgy. Caning could be edgy play. And so if you're thinking, hey, I want to waterboard someone. Okay, but do you know the semantics around that? Do you know what that entails? You're seeing a movie having some woman's head dunked into a tub, and then the camera is showing you from underneath, which, anyway, and then them pulling them up is sexy, I guess, right? It's like, oh man, right? But are you doing it safely? Have you negotiated? Have you talked to someone about doing it? How do you do it? Not like one just skips off to the bathroom and because someone said, yeah, sure you can, and then you do it. There are some things that we will not come back from, right? So in America, 25% of people die in shallow water a year. And by shallow, I mean 3 feet of water. So if people can drown in 3 feet of water trying to do a thing that's sexy, like dunking someone's head in water and not knowing really the tools around that or how to do that safely or to see it done and have a conversation like me in the caning or me in the cutting can put people's lives in danger, not only yours, but the person that you're with. Like I said, they're entrusting you to do a thing. They're entrusting that you have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to do it safely. So with that, anyway, yes, I've made mistakes. I'm sure I'm going to make more. I've made a whole ton of mistakes. So this conversation from the leather couch is about mistakes, how we deal with them, when we make them, and what we do afterwards. You have to make some kind of restitution in a way that makes a person feel better and safer to be around you. Anyway, until next time, have a good day, a good evening, a good afternoon, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.